I move that we approve the minutes.
Forgot about this. All
Either way.
All right, I have a second. Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. The minutes of February 18th are approved. At this time, we'll have a courtesy of the floor. Anyone? No? All right, okay, thank you. Then we will move forward to the solicitor's report. Mike, please.
Yes, there is no pending litigation as a result of the primary election. There were no challenges to the provisional ballots. There is, once again, there is still litigation going on, or there's renewed litigation over the date requirement. There was an injunction in place that prohibited, or that required the counting of undated and misdated ballots. So in accordance with the federal injunction, we did count the misdated and undated mail-in ballots. We will continue to abide in the general. If that changes, we'll continue to do whatever the court tells us to do.
Questions?
Yeah, hi. Afternoon, everybody. Okay, so the municipal primary election was held on Tuesday, May 20th. In total, we had 40,588 votes cast in that election. As an overall number, we're required to provide the total number of registered voters in Northampton County. So at that number, it was an 18% turnout, but if you drill down to just the Democrats and Republicans that could vote, it was a 22% turnout. 15,489 Republicans and 25,099 Democrats voted. Sure can. 15,489 Republicans and 25,099 Democratic voters. 99, yeah, of the registered voters in those parties, that's the numbers that voted. 21,916 voters went to the polls in person, and 18,586 voters voted by mail. And our overall mail-in ballot return rate was 75%. The official computation and canvass of the votes began on May 23rd and was completed on May 28th. During that canvass, we conducted our 2% audit, which is required by Act 88, and we passed the audit without issue. Casting of lots will take place this Friday, June 6th at 10 o'clock in the cafeteria. Of the casting of lots, we have 5 races. 4 of those races are for ballot position on the November ballot, and 1 is a casting of lot for the actual winner, and that is the Township of Hanover Supervisor 6-year term. So all the other ones are just for ballot position. That 1 is actually for the winner. And those will be conducted on Friday. And we have reached out to each of the candidates to see if they would like to attend. 10 o'clock Friday at the cafeteria. Yep, this Friday. Yep. Sure. The next election commission meeting, of course, is Tuesday, August 5th at 3 o'clock. And the next municipal general election is Tuesday, November 4th.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Any questions?
Chris, I just have a question for you, actually more of a statement. Just in the spirit of transparency, on May 20th, I called the solicitor because I had a Democrat voter in the city of Bethlehem contact me and tell me that there was a potential issue with a drop box that had not been, or some ballots that had been not counted originally, or something along those lines. Mr. Vargo cleared that up for me, but just for transparency, can you tell me what happened with just the one? There was one ballot apparently that got missed or something that was the explanation that he gave me.
So we had, when the ballots come in on election night, the last things we do is we collect, we open up during the pre-canvass, we open up all the mail-in ballots that have come in. And then throughout the day, we do drop box collections, and we also get mail from the post office. And then the last set of drop boxes come in before 8 o'clock. They're picked up at 8, so they close at 8, but they're considered a drop box, so that's as good as dropping it off in our office by 8 o'clock, so those will still count. So the deputies bring those ballots into our department. We use our ballot scanner to scan those ballots in, as we would do in any normal procedure. If for whatever reason one of those envelopes does not scan, we have to hand scan those individual ballots that did not scan. We had one ballot that during the hand scan didn't get completely read during the hand scan. The voter, I did speak with the voter directly and explain the situation that we did find the envelope and pre-scanned it. The ballot was counted, it's just that the envelope didn't get registered as they voted.
Okay, thank you.
So Chris, I had another question. Other than that issue, were there any other, I realize that there was a fairly late election, were there any other issues that came up? I think we've changed the envelope design each time. It looks different to me. And
This is the same envelope we had last year.
Okay, all right.
We did add, as per Department of State, we added the last 2 digits of the year to the envelope. Again, we're in current litigation with the date still being valid or invalid. It is currently, doesn't matter whether it's on there or not, but we did segregate those ballots. So we kept those separate. Anything that was misdated or undated, we counted separately. So if anything changes, they're in there now, but we certainly have the ability to remove those ballots in the
so
future.
I know there weren't any challenges. Was there any, is your feeling the statistics about the same for the people who didn't fill it out correctly as maybe in past, or are we getting better at it?
I think we're getting better at it, and we did get quite a few cures as well, so there wasn't a large amount. I think we have more of an undeliverable issue than we do people filling out the envelope properly. Meaning the post office can't deliver it to the address. We do get those back because you cannot forward election mail. So we get those back in the office, and we make an attempt to call those voters and find out what address they would like it mailed to. But it's, we have to actually get in touch with them to make sure, and if we can't get them delivered back, hopefully they go out and vote in person.
So you're saying you had more of those than other problems?
Yes, I would think.
That problem is
No, it's just now that's a bigger number than the other ones now because they're figuring out, yeah.
Chris, did you say that 75% of the ballots were returned, the mail-in ballots were returned 75%?
75%.
Do we have any way of knowing how many people showed up and voted provisionally of people? Or you may not have that in front of you, but do we keep that record?
I have the number. We received 106 provisional ballots back on election night. Of those 106, we counted 86 of them. And the 20 that did not count were for various reasons, that it was the wrong party, or they were unaffiliated. Or they, actually their mail-in ballot counted. So they filled a provisional ballot, they didn't present their mail-in ballot when they went to vote. Upon checking, upon the return, their mail-in ballot had already been accepted in the office. So we had to discount those provisionals.
Okay.
I have a quick question. There's a drop box in Bethlehem City Hall. What happens to that drop box since on election day they're closed? Is it picked up early or what?
Figured the situation last year in November. We keep the drop box in City Hall. It's easier access for everybody. On election day, we move it to the rotunda
Where
across
they're doing the
what do you call it? The center thing there. We move it across into the next building because the way our polling location is set up, it is in a breezeway. And in order to get to that drop box on election day, they would have to go through the polling location to get there. So it's easier for us to just move it. So on election day, we go out there and move that box.
Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
sure.
Okay, then let's move on to new business. Ballot on demand location, South Side, Bethlehem. That was, I guess, a follow-up to our discussion earlier this year in February.
Are you going to speak to this, Nicole?
I mean, I could just, this was we've had preliminary conversations with Lehigh University. They're certainly interested in partnering with the county in identifying a location that could be available for a few hours a week or a few days a week for ballot on demand. But haven't continued those conversations because we're referring it to the commission to take some sort of action on whether or not we should proceed. So
I mean, given that one of the major problem areas was Lehigh University in the presidential election, we had such a good turnout, which is a great thing. We would love to see all of the college students turn out. I would like to recommend or move that we pursue that opportunity. I think it makes it more likely that students will vote, which is something we want. We want everybody's voices heard. I also think that the lines are so long during, I mean, not this election because the turnout wasn't the same, but during the presidential election, when I came here during the time that people could vote on demand, I mean, the lines were like out the door, down the hall, around, and it's crowded to begin with. I think having another opportunity for people to vote on demand would, not only for college students, but other people that live in Bethlehem that may not come here to vote on demand would then be able to go there and take some of that traffic away. So I move that we pursue that opportunity.
Would somebody second that? And then we could further discuss it.
I certainly agree with what Margie said. The population density is very high on the south side, and this would provide, and I assume this might just be for presidential years, is that right, or would it be?
We would look to have something for this general election in the fall. So it would be for this year for the general election.
I would really prefer to do it prior to the presidential, you know, so that we have a little bit of, yeah, space there to, you know, see if there's any problems with it prior to a bigger turnout.
Yeah, I mean, the discussion with Lehigh University would be to identify a location where our staff could go and provide ballot on demand services. It would be limited services, ballot on demand, and you could register to vote, and that would be what you could do at that location. And we would have to determine a set schedule that we would publish and let the public know about when they could go and access those services. And it would be open to not just Lehigh University students, but to the public. Any Northampton County voter could go to that location and vote ballot on demand. Yeah, or Hellertown, or Lower Saucon, or Bethlehem City. I mean, anyone in the county, a registered voter or a voter who'd like to register and vote ballot on demand.
Would that, oh, I'm sorry.
No, the only thing I'm thinking about with Lehigh is the parking issue. I mean, if it were open and to people from the south side, if it were open to people coming from Hellertown or wherever, parking would really be an issue.
That's certainly something I could discuss with them or
Yeah.
see if they have some kind of
Who-
a solution.
Who actually owns the Fowler Center?
Northampton
Northampton?
County Community College.
Okay. We might want to consider conversations with them about the Fowler Center,
That's a good idea.
where there is parking.
Yeah, I don't think this would be limited, your resolution wouldn't, or motion wouldn't be limited to
The
Lehigh University.
just
It could
south
be
side and
really
accessible,
Center.
identifying a,
because it needs to be accessible, parking, and so,
absolutely, yes.
I just have a couple of comments, and then I'd like to ask the chair for an executive session. But my first comment is, I find it interesting that the administration's coming to us to ask us about making a resolution for this, but when we asked for drop boxes in the northern tier, that didn't happen, and then an additional box was added that we didn't authorize or we didn't talk about in the meantime. So for clarity, there's 3 boxes that are already in Bethlehem, correct? City Hall, the Fowler Center, and there was a new third one that was just put in, correct? So what's going to what would be proposed to happen with those boxes if we add this? Or the boxes are still going to be there, and then we're going to still have this satellite check-in station where you can register and vote on demand? Is that what you guys are thinking?
There are 2 boxes in Bethlehem, one at City Hall, one at Fowler. The other 2 that we added are in Washington Township and East Allen.
The northern tier one, yeah.
Yep. The other
Yeah,
one
sorry, we
is-
had the
yeah.
Bethlehem one and added the Fowler Center one.
Yes, correct.
Just really, maybe a dumb question. I still feel like the new guy. How many on-demand locations are there in the county or
One.
One.
in the state?
One. We have one here.
Well, how is this handled across Pennsylvania? This seems like, how hard is it to just get here or mail in your ballot? Why are we coddling this procedure for college students? They're adults. They have the same opportunities as every other voting adult to ask for a ballot.
Well, because of the college students, people on the south side, we have to be concerned about their being disenfranchised. I know personally somebody, an elderly person, who did not vote that day because the line was so long. Students. And so,
So why aren't we considering a voting location at Lehigh that's for Lehigh kids?
Right, exactly. A polling place, not an
A
on-demand.
polling place?
we had actually talked about that. We had talked about
Because, Mr.
that
Vargo,
as a
can-
part of this conversation.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this on-demand voting is kind of a gray area as it is already, right? Because there's no early voting in Pennsylvania, but we're calling on-demand voting, who you can come in and you can request your mail-in ballot, you get it, you fill it out, and you hand it in person. That's the definition that we have in this county of on-demand voting,
Throughout the state, that's what on-demand voting is. It
and
is-
that's authorized.
Yeah, it's no different than, because it occurs during the mail-in ballot time, and that's why it stops before the election, because it's limited to the mail-in ballot period. That's what it is. It is a request for a mail-in ballot that is immediately processed, and the person can then they don't have to, they could take it with them and fill it out later, but most people will fill it out immediately and then turn it in. But that's what it is. It's mail-in balloting, but it's done in an on-demand manner.
Okay,
So to Julia's question,
Yeah, so compared to a polling place, what are we talking as far as staffing and making sure everything, all the Ts are crossed and Is are dotted like they should be? I mean, it seems like offering a polling place or 2 to allow the lines not to be so long makes more logical budget sense and just,
From legally, the only way to add an additional polling place would be to redistrict. At some point, there will be redistricting, but that's really the only way to add another polling place would be to redistrict. Now, if I'm not mistaken, with the current construction of the banana factory, that polling place has moved, but I don't know,
Yes.
I don't remember exactly
I
where.
was just going to remind the
Yeah, if you could
commission
go
that
ahead.
we had worked with Lehigh University to relocate Bethlehem's third ward, so we're no longer at the banana factory. We're now at church, which is
Behind Broggle.
right behind Brockle Middle School and really just adjacent to the
Lehigh.
campus.
The church, it's a church building, but it is owned by
Yes,
Lehigh, correct?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's
recent-
an
I think it
active
was
church
recently-
or if it's,
Yeah, it
I
used to be
believe
a
it's
church,
it's
yeah.
vacant,
But
and
now
Lehigh
Lehigh
acquired
owns it.
it.
so a
in the
more
past year.
appropriate polling location, not an additional polling location, just a bigger location to handle the volume. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I
No.
mean, this past primary election, I'm not sure how many voters we had, but it may have been under 100. We had a very, very quiet day at Bethlehem's third ward for the primary municipal election.
A lot of people. Can you tell me, Chris, how many people voted on demand in the presidential election?
Over 7,000.
Those 7,000 people all had to come here to this building to do that. It makes sense to me to spread that out someplace else in the county, not just for college students, but for, as you said, Sharon, anybody that lives on South Side or Hellertown, in the southern part. It would take some of the stress off of what goes on in this building, and voting's not the only thing that goes on in this building. So the parking becomes an issue, the stress on just the staff here becomes an issue. People are cranky in line. I was here during that time, and it was a lot, but it's legal to do it, and it gives people options that don't trust the mail or don't want to drop their ballot or want their ballot but decide to vote by mail at the last minute, so you can still request a ballot 7 days before the election, then that request has to get to your office, it has to get mailed out, it has to be received. This would allow people to still vote by mail and be assured that their vote will be counted. So there's, I think, a lot of reasons why this is a step in the right direction.
I would love to see the numbers on, the volume of people. This election was unusual, especially for South Side, apparently by the numbers. 100's not a very big volume of people. I think since it's a budgetary issue, I would imagine to staff another location for on-demand voting. I'd like to see this study before we made any decision on the cost, the logic on where to put it, because again, the northern tier has a lot further to go to come to the courthouse. Why would they not be given another on-demand for, I'm just saying, for instance, or east, west, pick your poison.
I think we could be open to a northern tier location as well.
But again, it's not, we don't have budget control here. That's the county council.
No, the
so-
administration does, and we're open to pursuing this.
Mr. Vargo, are there any other counties that have multiple on-demand locations?
The one I think of immediately is Montgomery County actually has an ice cream truck. Well, it's a converted ice cream truck that they drive around, like, it's literally and that's a full satellite voting office, which is a novel solution to curing of ballots, but that's not something, like, that's a whole extra step. That's a whole extra level of infrastructure that I don't think we're looking at doing. I believe it is done in other, but I don't know. I've never looked into it. I mean, there's nothing that says it can't be done. Satellite voting offices are a thing. Technically, drop boxes are technically satellite voting offices. It's just they're used only for dropping off ballots. I genuinely don't know if anyone else has a location just for the limited purposes of processing voter registration and processing on-demand ballots. I don't know. It is possible, given the myriad of other solutions. I mean, there's a limited number of counties in Pennsylvania that are, of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania, there's a limited number that are the size of Northampton or Lehigh or the larger counties. And like I said, the only one I'm distinctly aware of because it made at least local, if not national news, was Montgomery County's ice cream truck, so.
And I'd be interested in seeing the numbers to justify if it was just this one election. That doesn't seem to make sense if it's an ongoing issue. But still, they have 3 options. Go on the day to vote, mail-in vote, or come here. There are 3 options available already.
I think the problem, if we remember back then, that we were in the national news.
Yeah.
Hours long. And, I would assume the on-demand, again, if they all show up on the same day, it's going to be the same thing. So they've got to spread it out a bit more. But it does seem to be more flexible and more workable than adding another precinct. And, buying more machines, I think there's a limit. I think a few extra machines were moved down there. But even then, that wasn't. So it seems like good preparation.
And not having 7,000 people coming here. Spreading that out a bit. And I think if we look at the population in the county, too, if you look at, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but the numbers in, say, Bangor, Mount Bethel area, Penn-Orjel, would be lower than the numbers that we have in Bethlehem, Easton, in the southern part of the county.
I don't have exact numbers in front of me, but that would be, make them be a logical conclusion based on the size.
I mean, my position as an election commissioner is to have as many people vote legally as possible. If we can increase that number of voices heard by offering more opportunities I think that's important.
I don't disagree, Margie. I agree with that. I'm just trying to justify our election, this past election in November was kind of an anomaly as far as the bulk and the 8-hour lines. I don't believe that's ever happened before.
But it's a great thing.
And I think
We want that to happen more.
Well, I guess.
Well, we don't want
mean, we
8-hour
want-
waits, but yeah,
No,
we want to
no,
accommodate that volume of
Right,
people.
we want
Right.
more people voting, I guess is my point. And if this makes it more likely that more people will vote and take, I mean, I wish every person that was eligible to vote, we would have the best government if everybody that was eligible to vote would vote. Because the vast majority of people would be somewhere here in the middle and the most people's needs would be met. I think that increasing that number is the best thing for our democracy. So I think if we can do that legally, and we have the money to be able to do it, and the staff to be able to do it, I think it's a good idea.
I'm going to re-ask for the chairwoman to hold an executive session, please. I'd like to have a conversation about something.
Okay, that's fine. Let's go into executive session, all right?
Is the training room open? I'll probably use we'll use my office. We'll use the.
Well, the person that I know who did not vote was a Spanish speaker.
Yeah, I
And
think
she
that's
was not able
important.
to vote because of the crowds. All right, right now we have a motion and it's been seconded, right? Did we have a second? Okay, but we do need to have further
Madam Chairman,
discussion.
can I have some clarity on the motion? Are we voting today to, is this motion to say, okay, administration, you can move forward with a plan and go ahead and do it? Or is this to say, administration, you can move forward, but please come to us with a plan first that we can then vote on to move forward?
My motion was just to move forward. But I also don't feel that I need the information that maybe some other people feel they need to be able to vote on this. So, yeah, my motion was to go ahead and move forward with it.
Are we allowed to, Mr. Vargo, can we amend a motion, or is it as it
There's
is
a
right
motion
now?
already on the floor,
Okay.
so it would have to be, there, it's not second, so if it is not seconded, a new motion could be brought forward if there is no second for the current motion.
Thank you.
So I guess what we have to find out is there a second for the motion that's currently on the floor to move forward, to request the administration move forward with planning ballot on demand location in Southside Bethlehem. So is there a second for that motion?
There's no second, so,
So I would like to hear more about the specific details we need to make a decision. So that involves some discussion. So is it possible to table that motion and discuss what another motion would look like? Or do we have to dispense with the first motion?
We have to
Let's
dispense with the
dispense.
first motion.
All
Either,
right.
if there is no second, then the first motion dies, but, so we have to find out if there is a second for the motion that's currently on the floor.
is the,
Could be revived later.
And, correct.
Yes.
A second, if nothing happens with that motion, an additional motion could be brought.
all right, I do not have a second to that motion, so we will dispense with that motion and have additional conversation. All right, so,
Well, I feel that there's, for me personally, just receiving the minutes yesterday, and unfortunately I was unable to attend the last meeting due to my work requirement. I was caught a little by surprise today that this was at this point. So for me personally, I need some time to digest the information. I think I'd like to get some information on, was this an anomaly that happened at Lehigh that time? Have we had problems like this at the banana factory before? I'm not aware of any. This is my 4th year on the commission. In our 4 years, some of us, I don't remember that being the case. I'd like to know, some more details about other counties and what they have and options there. If we're doing it on the south side of Bethlehem, is it going to be considered for the northern tier, for the people in Allen Township, Northampton, North Caddy, East Allen? So I think there's a lot of information that can still come in. So I'm not opposed to saying, supporting a motion today that would say, oh, okay, administration, you can move forward with creating a plan and bringing the plan with the information to us in August, or at a special meeting if we can, if time allows for everybody. But I'm not prepared to just make a blanket, okay, yeah, just go ahead and do it.
other comments?
I would agree with that. I'd like to codify a little bit more what exactly we're looking for as far as data. So that would be the history of particularly the banana factory, the numbers in especially presidential elections and midterms. Any other polling, any other places that face similar challenges, or any areas in the county that face similar challenges, and what else? Are these numbers that we can get readily within a month or two?
Yeah.
And I guess I would add to that, I think this was largely due to having a university. So maybe if we look at areas that have other large universities and the impact and how they handle it.
In the state.
In the state, yeah. I think that was a major contributing factor to this.
And again, how many other counties in our state have additional on-demand voting locations?
I'd love to be the first. We're not, clearly not the first, because Montgomery County has a mobile ice cream truck going around. Not that I'm suggesting that, but I just, for me, the 7,000, there are 7,000 people that come here to vote on demand. 7,000 people are making that choice for whatever reason. And it is available, but to have 7,000 people coming here seems to me, if we can spread that out a bit, to be a better option. We already know that 7,000 people came. We can't guarantee that there'll be 7,000. And I think, Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things that you said was it would not be as many days at the second location. Especially for the next election, you would limit the number of days. Maybe it would only be 2 days a week that people would have that option.
Correct. It would not be open 5 days a week.
And if
8
we
hours a
found that
day.
people were not taking advantage of that, could we then close that
Absolutely.
location if we found that it was unnecessary to do it?
Certainly.
If we found that there were still 7,000 people coming here to vote, that's not going to happen most likely in the midterm, but I think we're going to have typically the turnout for midterms is much greater than the turnout for just municipal elections, correct?
Generally, yes.
Yeah. So I think we'd have a better idea of what direction we were heading. We have had on-demand voting for the last midterm election, correct, Chris?
Yes.
So we would have numbers to compare then, looking at the number of people that came for on-demand voting in the last midterm. And if we did it this midterm, we would then have a better idea of how many people were taking advantage of this other location.
Yeah, I would probably caution, though, that mail-in balloting was still in its infancy, so there may have been
Okay.
some back in the last
Gotcha.
midterm. So, I mean, we can certainly look at the numbers, but I'm not sure what you'll find with that regard.
I mean, I just know that my one grandson requested a mail-in ballot, did not receive his mail-in ballot. This was in the presidential election. Did not receive his mail-in ballot. He came in, Amy checked on it, and it was late, though, in the election at that point. And then he was able to just go ahead, and they invalidated that mail-in ballot and allowed him to just vote here. That happened to not just him. I got calls from other voters that had the same problem. So I think, the on-demand voting is, in some cases, is much easier than going and voting at the election office by provisional ballot.
So I just want some clarity. Mr. Huff, you did indicate that, I was not sure if you were making a motion or just indicating that you would not be opposed to a motion for the administration to bring forward a specific plan.
I was formulating in my brain, so it was not,
Okay.
it was not
All right, I just
anything
wanted to-
official at this point yet,
procedurally, I
because
just wanted to
I know
be clear
Dan
where
had
we were.
we were having some conversations, so.
Okay.
I want to make a few comments. So Margie made a really good point that I want to echo, which is the nice thing about the on-demand voting is it's got the flexibility. It's not like establishing another precinct and finding out we didn't need it. Basically, if it's not used, you don't do it. You just wind it down at that point and you don't do it again. And I think that's really, really helpful. Clearly, for the on-demand voting, people need to know in advance. It's not going to solve the election day problem that's 8 hours long. By that point, it's too late, right? So they've got to know in advance. The other question I've got in terms of the plan that, I think we would like to see would include the data about the 7,000 who come here to do on-demand. First of all, when are they doing it? What does the curve look like? And then is it like panic mode, like just a couple days before the election? And the other question is, can we get the precincts they're coming from? If there are a lot of them that are coming from far away, then we know it's an imposition on them to have to come all the way to Easton. And that might be, indicative of another need for another on-demand voting facility someplace else, right?
I had said it in executive session, but I want to say it on the record here, that there are plenty of people that don't even know how to get a mail-in ballot, don't have access to a computer to request it online, don't know how to request it or where they would call to get a mail-in ballot. There are plenty of people that don't get a mail-in ballot because they don't know how to go about doing it. I think the on-demand, if they know there's a place where they can go and they can't go on election day, or they're worried about they only get an hour off for lunch and they can't afford to be away from their job for longer than that, or have to go, there were lots of people that had to go pick up kids or get their kids someplace after school. I mean, there's a lot of good reasons for voting on demand and having that available. I think that spreading it out a little bit to another location is you know, I look at on South Side too, we've got a lot of, I'm really very happy that we've included Spanish on all of our voting machines and on all of our mail-in ballots. But there are people on South Side that are Spanish speakers that would come vote on demand on South Side and make their voices heard if that were available. That might not even have transportation to get here, but could get there. So I think giving more people an opportunity is a great idea.
All right, to your point, Margie, I think another thing to look at that we'd like to be part of the presentation is if people don't know how to vote, how to go to the library and get on a computer to vote, then how will you get the word out that these places even exist and their hours of operation? I'd like to see the plan and what are the considerations to even let people know. So it's not 6,950 people coming here and 50 people know about the other on-demand location. That needs to be part of the thought process.
I'll just say, I also think that if it is a path that we eventually approve and goes into place, I think it needs to be all places keep the same dates and the same hours. Because I think it might get, again, people that have information, if we're gonna do it one way, it needs to be uniform across the board. If the courthouse is open 8:30 to 4:30, and you can come here, and we eventually say okay to something else, then I think that needs to be matched. I don't think we should do we're only gonna be open at lunchtime or whatever. If the true argument is it's about getting people to come in and making it equal across the board, then everything needs to be the same. It needs to be uniform. So I'll make a motion that the commission give a green light to the administration to prepare data and bring it to us at the next meeting or at a special session that is determined between all of us, and present these questions that we've had and their plan for implementing such a satellite spot.
Seconded.
Before we vote, I want to ask, is that a feasible request? Is what we're asking seem feasible, or is it something that you cannot do without?
Practical for implementation for the general election would be to pass a motion, and then we can certainly come back in August and let you know what we'll be implementing for the November election.
That sounds
That's not what
exactly
I'm saying, though.
opposite of what we're asking. I think the motion is to have the information, vote on it in a special session in enough time to implement it, but know what we're voting on. We don't know what we're voting on exactly, and why it makes sense here rather than there. How, like Daniel had said, where people were coming from.
I think those
to
are
come
things
here.
that are just purview of the administration and the policy implementation.
I think it's a purview of this commission to have that information as well, if we're going to be voting on it, correct?
Well, I think that there are budgetary decisions and policy decisions, which I think Mr. Vargo could, share, but those are administration decisions.
I disagree.
Is it a question of having certain kinds of data? I would assume getting data that we would then be able to understand ourselves would not be intruding in any way on the responsibilities of other branches of the county government. Is that right? Just having the data to look at. Is that sufficient, Scott, or no?
But part of my motion is to see what the plan is. If we approve moving forward with it, what exactly are you going to do? Not just say, okay, and then,
Right.
and then, I mean, this isn't about budgetary. To me, it's not about the money. It's about making sure that everything that we're doing and that we're saying is okay to do is within the rules and is within the law, and that we're, because our signatures are on those ballots. Just remember that. So, theirs aren't. So I just want to make sure that it's being done correctly, and I'd like to see those things before I can say, yeah, do whatever.
Does that make more sense? I think Scott said it pretty clearly. We'd just like to know what exactly we're voting on and why, and see how it's going to be implemented, and then make the vote instead of go do this thing and it could come out however it comes out.
I think the commission should, make and pass whatever motion you see fit, and we'll go from there.
All right, so this is how I'm hearing the motion, and this is what my expectation would be, that in August, we would expect information data that justifies, is that what I'm hearing? That justifies and supports the need for a second and additional in-demand location. Is that correct?
Or multiple.
Yes, or multiple.
And how is that plan going to be implemented?
All right, and so that is where your motion would come in, Margie, that we would then know this is what we're proposing in terms of a location, these are the hours, and et cetera. Was that the spirit of your motion?
I mean, I don't really see the downside to it. So I guess my motion was for them just to move forward with the plan. I don't really have that many questions about whether or not it should happen. In my opinion, it should happen. They should move forward with it. I don't feel the need for more information at this point. I guess, Nicole, my question is, if we wait until August 3rd to make a decision, 5th, to make a decision, is that enough time to then implement it?
Everything well underway by that date to know where we're.
Yeah, because you have to know, you have to be able to hire people. If you have to hire more people, you have to put a plan in place with whoever you're working with.
I mean, you've figured this is following the mail-in ballot window, right? So you figure that our mail-in ballots are probably going out end of September. So it would be, that's when this would begin, and it would go until, late October. About, 7 days before the election, or 7?
If we were to call for a special meeting that is earlier than August 5th, would that make it feasible?
Or could some of the things that you want to suggest are implemented have started to be advanced?
I guess what additional data would I provide about South Bethlehem? I mean, that was really where we were looking for South Bethlehem. I'm not sure what additional information I could provide to you.
I mean, we've all put out some figures that we'd like to see. I think that, again, for me, it comes down to fair is fair, and if this is a county issue, that, okay, maybe there's a lot of people in Southside Bethlehem, but then there's a lot of people over here in Southside Easton, and maybe up in the northern part, like the people that have to come from East Allen and Northampton and the borough and all that, or up in the Slate Belt, like, we've already given Bethlehem, or I should say, we tried to balance it out by giving everybody a box a couple of years ago. Then another box was added that we didn't. There was no discussion in front of the commission about that. So they have 2 boxes there. I think we're just trying to ask for the courtesy of some data so that we can make an informed decision. We've talked about a couple of times now the data that we're asking to see.
So,
I'm not saying no to this. I want to be very clear. I'm not saying no to it. What I'm saying is give me and give us an opportunity to make an informed decision, because our signatures are on the ballots. We are the election commission. That's all I'm asking.
I want to make sure that when we ask for data, it's very realistic. We're not asking for something that's either vague or can't be done.
Right.
So I suggested of the 7,000 who voted on demand here, if there's a way to figure out the distribution over time for those 7,000 and also the precincts they're coming from. That kind of data, which I think should be pretty easy to get. And then whether there were any other hotspots that were any way comparable to, I'm saying it's an 8-hour line. I think it was an 8-hour line on the south side in the presidential election. If there's
5 to 6, but yeah.
5 to 6, okay.
Or even regardless of the time, the number of voters.
Well, it's kind of hard to judge that because it,
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. A northern tier location is something, I mean, one thought I have is Washington Township. I'd be more than happy to reach out to them and see if they would host a ballot on demand location. We have a Dropbox there. We could offer the same, you know, so we have something in the north and something in the south. That could be part of this. And maybe the data that might be more informative is then to be able to review after the election, how much was this utilized
Well, that's
and who
true,
was
too.
utilizing it. The presidential election last year was a bit of an anomaly. I can tell you, I was in those hallways and I was in the election office every day. I didn't see my family for about a week because I was there. And there were a lot of first-time voters. There were a lot of people coming out to vote who weren't regular voters. They weren't people who voted every single year. They were saying, I haven't voted in 25 years. I brought my mom to vote. She doesn't normally vote, you know. So there was, I just don't know how informative that data would be to us because it may be a bit anomalous.
well,
We compare to other years. I mean, get a 4 years, a presidential election and a presidential election and all the things in between. Is that a crazy ask?
I just don't know how it's going to necessarily instruct us, and it would really delay us in the ability to execute these ballot on demand locations. If we wanted to have ballot on demand in November, the administration is open to pursuing, you know, a northern and southern
Yeah.
option, and we would be happy to do that, report back in August on, you know, what our plan is for November and what we think works operationally with our staffing, with our budget, with our, you know, within the confines of the law and applicable policies. And then we are able to report back after the election at this post-election meeting on how it went and who used it.
Well, and another concern I would have with that, you're saying go forward, you're staffing people, assuming we follow some sort of plan that the staff would mirror what the staff that was here to handle the on-demand, how will they be trained? We had problems with judges of election who've done this before or first time or were giving false information. Who's working here and are they going to be trained in the same way? Is it staff here that you're going to split?
It would be staff here. It would be our, I mean, it's bargaining unit work. Our staffers who are in the current bargaining unit would be doing this work. That work belongs to them.
And we get back to, you're just splitting staff at 2 locations. It's the same number of people handling the same number of people, just at 2 different locations. Am I correct?
I mean, they are servicing voters of the county in just a different capacity.
And
And we
it's
would-
not.
and we would look
it's
at our-
only, they can only take like one person at a time. Like it would, it's not that it would be the same number of people, but it would be fewer people in line, fewer people approaching the desk all at the same time, fewer people, you know, it would be spread out more, not evenly probably, because the majority would probably still come here, but it would decrease probably the waits, the number of people you have waiting in line, I mean, you won't need as many staff if you have fewer people that you have to address. You could move those people. The advantage I see, and the difference between judges of election, the advantage to this, for me, another advantage would be you've got on-site supervision there. Someone from the elections office is going to be, you've got regularly trained election staff that do this at this satellite location.
I totally get that. What I see is I have a grocery store and I have, X number of workers. Now I'm going to open a second grocery store and I'm going to have half the number of workers. You don't even know where the people are going to fall. How is that service not going to be affected at the original store and the satellite store? They might be sitting there twiddling their thumbs. They might be super busy, but now you have the same amount of staff handling the same number of people, just spread out. I mean,
That's kind of what's happening in the world anyway today. But let
and
me
it's
just
not
go
fun.
back to, we're sitting here worrying about the data, but the one thing we don't know the number of people who did not vote at the banana factory. And that's who I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about those who did not, who saw those lines. I have a responsibility to them. Yes, my name is on that form, and when they see my name on that form, I want my name to be connected with their enfranchisement, that they live in a country where they have the right to vote, and that I did everything I could to ensure. And I know an elderly woman who speaks Spanish, whose daughter took her there to vote, who did not vote that day because of the lines. Now, if you're 70 years old, you can't stand in a line for 5 or 6 or whatever hours. So if there were another place, if her daughter couldn't take her on a Tuesday, then perhaps she could take her on a Thursday. So the data that I need and the data that I'm concerned about is the data that indicates those who didn't want to vote. So from my point of view, I'm ready to move forward with your opening another. And if we put one in the northern tier, absolutely, because I'm sure there are seniors up in the northern tier who have the same kind of situation. And so, I'm ready to move forward with.
Either way, we have a seconded motion on the floor that needs to be voted on.
So does,
I just want to be clear, the current motion pending is for the administration to bring a plan either to a specific plan for satellite, I don't want to say satellite, for on remote on-demand voting to an additional either special meeting or at the August meeting. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay.
With the requested data that we've asked for.
With data and information to.
Correct, to back up to,
And if I could just comment, since it is not a presidential year and we don't expect that volume, I don't see the urgency. If it happens in November, great, it'll be a great test run, but I don't think we're gonna have the issues. So, if it waits till spring, I'm okay with that to do it right.
So if that motion does remain pending, so there should be a vote on that motion to see what we do before we do anything else.
Okay.
Unless there's further debate on the motion.
all right. Anything else on the current motion?
I just have a
Dan?
question. Since we're asking for data, I want to be sure that the data we're asking for is expressed in a way that makes sense, and then you can actually come back with that data, because if the request is vague or impossible, then, there's no value in our voting on it.
well, the two items that you brought up are 100%, those are very key points.
And that was where those 7,000 voters came from to
Yep.
do on-demand here.
Yep.
And
And
also, when they did it. So that data,
I mean, we know it was in the last week of ballot on demand, and every day we
was a
saw the
big peak,
numbers
yeah.
climbing. We got up to about 1,000 people a day at the peak, which
And
was
is it
the
possible-
last day or the day before the last day.
and then the question is, where were they coming from?
They were coming from all over the county.
Well, but
I mean, but
do we have the actual data, the precincts?
I don't believe it'll be as informative as, like I said, I think these were a lot of people who came out to vote in a presidential election that I'm not, were motivated to vote specifically in this election.
Well, yeah, we can't, no one can predict the future, so we
Yeah.
can't say what's going to happen in the future.
I think to Sharon's point, the more important data did more people come to vote when we opened this other option? That to me, to your point,
Overall
Sharon, how many people, well, in comparison to other midterm elections, did more people come to vote because this option existed? Because we're not going to know, what I agree with you, the most important thing, how many people are not voting because they don't have a ride to get here, they can't get there on election day, they don't know how to get a mail-in ballot. And I can tell you, if you put that information out on a college campus, that these are the days that you can vote on demand, you're going to have kids coming there to vote. And if you put it out in like the Spanish Center on South Side and you have it written in Spanish, it's likely that more people will have that information. You could put it on Spanish radio, would be another place to put it, that option exists. So I think, just having that, I think the only way we're going to get the data that's most significant to Sharon and to me is how many people are we going to increase the number of people that vote by offering this opportunity? And I don't think we know that unless we do it. I just don't see the downside to doing it. I just can't think of a downside.
Anything else?
The trouble is you can't collect data on something that didn't happen.
Right.
So that's not a feasible data request. So you would like to see a vote to move forward right now. Is it possible? You said the northern tier might be doable along with south side of Bethlehem.
Absolutely.
Would that be satisfactory? Move forward on both? All of these things will have to be put in place and then judged after the fact, because we can't predict how useful they'll be.
I'm only assuming that correct me if I'm wrong, when I was here when there was on-demand voting, you didn't have just the people in the elections that normally work in the elections office. You had additional people from different parts of the building coming to assist with that.
We had about 60 county workers from every other area of the county coming in to assist with us. We had
Right.
people from human resources, from the row offices, from human services. I was recruiting volunteers across the county to come and help us, and we probably had about 10 or 12 people working each.
And those people could be dispatched, with training and supervision to other locations.
I don't think that's part of our plan. I think we feel that we have sufficient staff resources, that we would come up with a plan within our current staffing structure, and we would develop a schedule that would be
Including
feasible.
those additional people from the
We
county.
have temporary workers in elections who come
Which for
in
this
and
election, you may not even need to employ just because it's a local election.
temporary workers come in every election
Okay.
they help with
Okay.
They help with putting together mailings. They help. The election is a very labor-intensive process. There's a lot of work to do. So
You have confidence that you could provide that, or you wouldn't have brought this idea. Lamont would not have brought this idea before us if he didn't have confidence that you could do it.
correct. We are very confident that we're able to offer this service at other locations in the county.
Okay, so in one sense, you're saying we had 60 extra workers and we needed all these people, but now you have your 12 or however many people on staff. You feel you can monitor 3 different locations at the same time, yet that a number of people needed an extra 60 people. I'm not seeing how the math works, even if you go 20, 20, 20.
It
I'm
was
not
it
seeing
was
how.
it was the sheer volume of people we had show up at once.
Which is what we're anticipating with this move, because of the sheer volume of people. We don't want to have the 5, 6, 8 hour wait or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think we're expecting the kind of turnout we had in the
And then
presidential
Well,
election.
then that brings me back to, what is its purpose? I
Well, its
mean,
purpose is to offer a resource to county voters.
so it's not because of volume, it's not because people are waiting in line, it's to offer another service. Is that correct?
I think it's both. I mean, I think it's to,
You can't have it both, because you just said you don't need any extra staff. It's one or the other, I would think.
no, I think that the presidential election that we keep referring to and the resources that we had to deploy to meet the levels of voter participation we saw were just unprecedented and anomalous. And I don't know if that, I mean, we want
Right,
people
so-
to vote, but I don't know if that will ever repeat
So
itself.
the reason for
to that
on-demand
extent.
voting is so, I mean, I'm hearing two different things. I feel like, well, we don't want to have that happen again. We want to make sure the students can vote. Well, they can still vote here. It's probably not going to be 7,000 people, lining the hallways. I was here. It was so hot. It was so miserable. You guys were amazing. Everybody was really working hard. If we're not expecting that, then again, what is the purpose? We're already serving people in an on-demand way here. I find it hard to understand.
Well, if I can just speak, I think we need to, whether the south side, the north tier, whatever, I think we need to make voting accessible. And so parking here, if we can have another location where parking is easier, where people can get to, that's the purpose, because we live in a country where people have the right to vote, and we need to do everything we can to ensure that they vote. Because everybody's not like you and me who may know about technology, who have a car, who are able-bodied, who are independent, who can get where they want to go when they want to go. And if having an additional place opens up for other people, then I think it's our responsibility to do that.
And
I don't
that's where the
see what the
data-
negative
that's
thing
what the-
is.
I have no problem with exploring that. I would just like to see some of the data that we asked for.
So let me.
Commission ready to vote? Or
Well,
is there
just a second. I was hoping we could be very specific about the data, but then there seems to be, I'm a little confused about what we're asking for in totality and whether it's even feasible, because you can't ask for data about the things that didn't happen. So if it's limited to the 7,000 who voted on demand here, we can get that data, right? But I'm also imagining a scenario where we're trying to predict the future. We can't predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen. What we are trying to do, I'll say this, is build the capacity to avoid the worst-case scenario we saw before. Right. And it's just like buying insurance or anything else you do. It's, you hope it doesn't happen again, but you want to have things in place in case it does happen again. So one thing for us to consider about is making a motion to go forward. This is not a motion yet, it's an idea, for on-demand voting location on the south side and in the northern tier, and consider it to be an experiment for a couple years, and then reassess it at that point and say, yes, it worked, or no, we didn't need it. But it's a kind of thing, unlike creating new precincts, that can be sort of spun up, and then if it's really not needed, spun down. But I don't see that it does any damage. I do think it's good preparation for what may or may not happen next time. And if it's done in the northern tier and the south side, we're distributing the heavy load on this location. So to me, it makes sense to move forward in that way. I would just suggest that, something like that. But
If you build it, they will come. There you go.
So let me just ask this. Help me. The current motion,
Current
Michael,
motion, and I'd ask Mr. Huff to correct me if I get it incorrect, is to request that the administration prepare a plan for, in other words, come back to the commission with a specific plan for a voting site at a minimum at south side, possibly one in the northern tier also, along with the data to explain why that would be helpful. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So that's what's currently on the floor. That has been moved and seconded.
Yeah.
So before we move on to any other motion, we would have to have a vote on that.
all right, thank you for that. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. So that motion has been defeated.
Are there any other motions at this time?
I'll move again that we move forward with this opportunity for the voters. I would move forward, ask that the administration look both on the south side and at a northern location, if that's feasible.
Is there a second for that motion?
So if you were to do that, what would we hear at the meeting in August?
We would be able to present our plans for a southern and northern location for ballot on demand.
So you
An
would
already
come,
implemented plan.
Have voted on it here.
I trust the county executive to, and Chris and Amy that know what the rules are, always abide by all the rules to the best of their ability, that they will be able to implement this in a lawful manner.
Mr. Comini, do you have a position on this?
No,
all right. Any other questions? Any
Just-
other comments?
Just one other comment before we vote. I don't understand the urgency. If it's not about numbers, why we can't talk about this and look at what we're actually doing before we vote on it. This is, you're gonna, vote on something before you even look at it, and I don't understand why we would do that.
I think the plan's clear. You're going to open another opportunity and staff it for people to vote on demand,
But why?
because it will open up opportunities for more people to vote.
Okay,
And take off some of the numbers of people that are coming here, make it more accessible for people that can't drive to get here. I mean, if 7,000 people showed up and I know we're not going to have those kind of numbers, but I think getting people used to going other places is valid in and of itself, to go to another place to vote.
I think we can't even know that, or where those places are, where the best locations are, without studying it. I've never
Well,
been in
one
a
place
business
we do
situation
know.
where people make a plan and say, we'll just see how it works. We're not going to use any data. We just feel like it should be here or feel like it should be there, instead of looking at, well, what makes the most sense? I mean, maybe this plan to have another location isn't even the best way to get more voters. Maybe it's advertising to educate people in English and Spanish, how you get a vote, how you get a mail-in ballot. Maybe
We
that
already are
makes more
doing
sense.
that. That's clearly already being done.
Maybe not effectively enough. Maybe there's another way to do that. I think this is the one-and-done plan that's being presented, and I just think there could be other options. I don't see the urgency.
Anybody, any other comments?
So I think the motion was stated in a general enough way that when we see this plan, I would like to see the data that supports the plan. And I assume that at any point in time, a year from now, 2 years from now, if the commission, the future commission, were to decide that this was not a worthwhile endeavor because it's not being sufficiently used, it's not solving the problem that we think it's supposed to solve, that the commission could at that point say, okay, this is not working, and we are not supportive of moving forward at that point. Because I don't think we can predict the future. I don't think we can.
I guess I think it's a good idea, and if we don't do it now, I do think that next year we can expect a large volume again. And so I would hate to wait until next year. So, I think we can maybe get the answers that you need, and position ourselves so that we don't have a reoccurrence of what we saw in 2024. All right, anything else? All right, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Oh, we didn't get a second
Is
yet.
the
I'm
motion
sorry.
sufficiently clear?
The motion is clear. I believe the current motion
I'm sorry.
is to is to request that the administration move forward with planning for an on-demand voting site, both in Bethlehem and in the northern tier. That's my understanding of the current motion. I do not know that that motion was seconded. So,
It was not.
so is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
All right, it has been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Hey,
All right, thank you. The ayes have it, so we will move forward.
Is it time for everyone's favorite motion?
No, you know what, I neglected, I had it written here. There was one small new piece of business. I got some indications that, speaking of disenfranchising, but when we moved Graysdale's polling place to Graysdale proper and out of the emergency center, there was a major parking issue. There was almost no parking for voters to be able to park. Can we take a look at that, Mr. Kamini?
I was not aware of that, but certainly we
Yeah.
can.
If it can be moved back to the emergency area, that was great. I don't know if that's an option anymore.
We only moved, and from my understanding, because it was moved before I got here, but the only reason they moved it was because of COVID and the residents of Graysdale. So once COVID was cleared, they moved it back to where it was originally, but we'll look at the parking issue.
Maybe parking had changed since then, but it was definitely an issue.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
I just want to, I've said this to Chris personally, but I want to put it on the public record. I visited 12 polling places on Election Day, and people were really working well together. The teams work really well together, and people were thrilled with the new end of day process. That was a big, big improvement, the whole drive-through thing, and they wanted me to tell you that they were very appreciative of that, because everybody's really exhausted at the end of the day, and sometimes the weather's not great, and this opportunity to do the drive-through process was greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other new business? Anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right. Okay, thank